Welcome to the DLLS Rangers Weekly Podcast, now part of the All City Network. Hit the subscribe button for YouTube and also become a DLLS diehard at www.alldlls.com. Now here's Jeff and John. Hey everybody, welcome to the DLLS Rangers Weekly Podcast. This is episode number 32, and today from The Daily Show, John Rhadigan is going to join us as we kind of call this one It's Not Good Right Now. So that's what we'll call it. If you guys didn't jump on last night, they had a post-game show that came on after the loss, that hideous loss, John, that happened last night in Tampa Bay and the way that one ended. But, hey, before we go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there. Go over to the DLLS YouTube channel. Hit it there. Look, if you follow the Stars, the Cowboys, the Rangers, the Mavericks, whoever you follow, those guys got stuff going. Kalen DeBoer, what is his name? Not Kalen, but Pete DeBoer was just fired today. I'm sure the Stars channel is about to get on there, and we're going to hear some names of who the Stars might be hiring. But this is a Texas Rangers show, and that means our daily crew. And John, I appreciate you jumping on. We had someone we thought lined up, and he just couldn't get on here. But John's always willing and ready to go. And John, it's not fun right now.
No, it's really not. And Jeff and John, I'm sure you were watching. So you know, but the mystery of the blood on my scorebook has been solved.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So at the end of lunch today, my wife said, "What's wrong?" And my lip, just at the edge of my lip, for some reason, was bleeding. And so I have to assume, as we were eating a few things, and of course drinking the lovely highlight of the night lunch boxes last night.
Oh yeah.
Somehow I nicked this lip. It fell onto I thought it was because my brain had exploded watching that last play. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. I'm like, did blood trickle out of my ear? How did it get onto my damn scorebook? Apparently it came off my lip. The game was as ugly as the bloody stain in the middle of my scorebook. It's just a thing of atrocity, at least the ninth inning. Before that, it was really fun to watch. Love seeing Marcus Semien come back alive. Jack Leiter was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Man, that ninth inning. Ugh.
Oh my gosh. It's all just not, it just doesn't seem to be. The only thing clicking on this team right now is the pitching staff. And the bullpen, obviously, there's a little bit of issue there. You can't argue with starting pitching. Yeah, Kumar Rocker did not have the outing we wanted from Kumar Rocker, but he seems to be a guy that you know what? He's only got 80 pro innings or something like that.
Yeah, I was texting with somebody, and I had given him my thoughts, which is that he's not a professional yet, and you can take that in a lot of ways. I
agree. I know what you're saying.
Being accountable, but knowing game situations in the game. And the response was he doesn't know how to play the game. He only has 70, career innings in professional baseball. He hasn't had enough time, and so that's if you heard Bruce Bochy's comments, go down and have game situations and do things like that. It's not quite to the point, I don't think, and this is an example I always kind of lean back on. Roy Halladay, because he went to my high school. He came up at the end of a season for the Blue Jays, almost throws a no-hitter in his first major league start, and is great. Comes back the next year, and it's terrible. They sent him basically to extended spring training. They had him rework everything, get everything right, and then, the rest is history. I'm not saying that's what has to happen with Kumar Rocker, but, it wouldn't hurt if he went through some extended drills, send him to Arizona and let him work with those kids. Every day they're doing stuff, and it's hotter than hell.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe that would motivate him to get out of there, but go through some drills, go through situations, stuff he probably did, I'm assuming, at Vanderbilt, but just a real refresher course, even if it's a cram session, then get him back into the rotation at AAA, then go through game experiences like they said, because that stuff's got to be second nature. As Bochy said, You shouldn't even have to think about it. It should just happen.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and
totally
it's not
agree.
happening. It's not happening. But Jeff, all the time we've worked together and known each other, I can't believe this is the first time hearing that Halliday went to your high school. Now, John, as you know, Jeff will say, "Oh yeah, he actually that pitcher for the Cubs." He once flew through the Denver airport. I mean, like,
Yes.
Jeff he will cling he'll cling to the Colorado thing on you. But but
Colorado's big in the Wilson household.
It's big. It's big. But Halliday's got to be about your age, right? Did you go to school with him?
He's 2 years younger. He played.
Jeff picked on him in high school.
No, I didn't. He played basketball with my two best friends.
Okay.
And so they got to know him a lot better than I did. But yeah, I mean, I only saw him pitch one game in high school, and he threw a no-hitter. Yeah, and then it wasn't even close. I don't even know if the other team was fouling balls off. He was just whacking them out. But that's true. That's I don't know if it's my claim to fame, or my brush with greatness. It was Roy Halladay at my high school.
So then, when you interviewed him and stuff during his big league career, I mean, you guys were boys, right?
Well, I reminded him of the connection. He goes, "Oh yeah," and then but he then went to the other league pretty quickly after I took the beat, and so I didn't have a chance to talk to him as much as I would have liked. But
did he remember you, or did he nicely say he did remember you?
Well, a little bit of both, I think. But he definitely remembered my buddies. So that's all that matters.
Cool.
That's crazy. I think you had told me that before. But John, you're right. If there's something Colorado that comes up, Wilson is never afraid to throw in on that. And any minor leaguer that's from Colorado has a special place in his heart. And they get into that Colorado conversation, and I just sit over here going,
we're tied, baby.
Well, there's a few of them. Skylar Hales, wasn't he? He went to school.
Skylar Hales is not from Colorado.
But he went to school at Colorado Mines, or somebody did. Pennington is who it was. That's who it was. Oh, yeah. So you always got those.
Now Sam Haggerty. He went to high school in Colorado.
There you go. So he's going to always do that.
Yep.
Okay. And listen, John, I know you're probably not as active. I'm the guy of this group that probably gets more active with social media with the people, because I try to get back and forth. I don't have as many followers, so it's easier for me to interact. The Ranger fandom is ready to fire Chris Young. They think Bochy needs to retire, trade away, break it down, tear it down, do all of that. I giggle at it. I laugh at it a lot at that, because obviously these guys are good Major League Baseball players. I don't care what anyone says. They suck right now. That's just really a way to put it. They are not performing up to level. They didn't last year doing that. But we are starting to see a few things that are encouraging. First of all, you got to give the Rangers props. They have made moves. They send. Think of that. Jake Berger went down to AAA. They've moved Adoli set for 4 games. They've moved Simeon down to 8 or 9 in the lineup before he started to come back. I mean, they're not afraid to do whatever it's going to get to kickstart this offense. Scoring 4 runs is good. I mean, we enjoyed 4 runs last night in doing that. And then your bullpen, of course, is the one that lets you down last night. But it's starting to semi look like there maybe something can get going with this offense.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. The reality is, though, and I love, and Jeff and I both, we do it, we appreciate it every day on the show. We love the passion of the fans, but they're wrong. Right? They're wrong. I mean, Chris Young, there is no better general manager for this team right now than Chris Young. And Bruce Bochy is a legend. He is the manager until he doesn't want to be. And so fine, if they're right and he retires, it for sure wouldn't be until the end of the year. Well, maybe they get their wish. But the rest of us that A, enjoy talking to him, B, have known baseball for all this time, know whoever is in that role after Bruce Bochy won't know as much about the game and perhaps likely won't know as much about people and how to coach people as Bruce Bochy does.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not so much coaching as the title manager. You have to manage
Mhm.
people. These guys it's 26 guys, 26 different personalities, their quirks, the way their bodies work, the way they want to work with their bodies, and you have to juggle it all. And like Corey Seager on a day off doesn't want to pinch hit. Okay, well, Bruce Bochy has coaxed him into pinch hitting a couple of times.
Yep.
There are some guys who just have their way with these players. How I don't know that the Adolis situation, Garcia. We don't know what's bubbling under the surface, but when Bruce Bochy says, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," if you're Adolis, you got to be like, "Well, I don't know. This guy's won 2,100 games and 4 World Series. Maybe I should listen to him." And he has a way. Like, oh, who has Bruce Bochy ever managed? Oh, I don't know. Tony Gwynn, Barry Bonds, Trevor Hoffman,
Yeah.
Buster Posey, guys who are in the Hall of Fame or should be in the Hall of Fame or are going to be in the Hall of Fame. So it's not like he doesn't have a track record that these players don't respect, and they like the guy. They genuinely like the guy. And then on the Chris Young front, as I always said with John Daniels, Chris Young has a boss. His boss is the owner, and the owner gives him the money to spend. Then he assembles the roster as best he can. Now, I even said this with John Daniels. I don't like the way they build bullpens. They need to have an ass kicker closer.
Yeah.
I just think it's a worthwhile
investment. And they haven't done it in years.
But this is the guy who has assembled Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom. Okay, that's pretty good. And then he might have had a little JD help on Seager and Semien, but Eovaldi and deGrom are all his. And to just think that this pitching staff, which is historically good, happened by accident is not the case. It took a general manager who's a former major league pitcher to talk to these guys. So I think that's now does he have his flaws? Yes. I think he's too competitive. I think he has to sit back and not get so caught up in every game. It's going to kill him. And maybe that's gotten better. But
he hates to lose.
He is more competitive, I think, than any player. So if you're a player, that's not good. If your boss is but he's also though understands and looks at the big picture. Nobody in the American League is great, and the Rangers are a 14-20 stretch from being right back in it and probably being in first place in the West. So, and there's enough time to do that, but it probably does need to happen soon. I really think, we can say there's 95 games or whatever it is left, but I think the next 40 going into the trade deadline, going into the All-Star break are probably the most important stretch here and going forward to determine how the Rangers will handle the trade deadline.
To address it for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing about the pitching that Chris Young has been responsible for relative to assembling what they have in the rotation now, let's don't forget that he helped assemble what they're going to have in the future, foremost among them, Jack Leiter. And there was noise that, again, I don't know that Jack Leiter would have had much choice, Jeff, if he'd said, I don't want to play for the Rangers. But there was noise that maybe he wasn't as interested and his dad wasn't as interested in having him play here until they talked to Chris Young. And once they talked to Chris Young, they knew he would be treated and developed properly. And then the next year for them to draft Kumar Rocker, again, right away in the first round was just amazing. And despite the flaws that we've mentioned and the growing pains, if you will, on Rocker, he's going to be a steady, at least at worst, a very steady rotation piece for years to come.
Yeah, and those
his arm's too good.
Yeah, JD was the head at that time, but he let he let Chris Young make those 2 picks, because in 21 there was some consternation of whether they would take Leiter, or there was a big group that wanted Marcelo Meyer, who's now in the major leagues with the Red Sox, the shortstop.
Good player, by the way.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't pick Meyer because they knew that there were going to be 5 shortstops in free agency, and they ended up signing 2 of them and moving one permanently to second base. But the Rocker and Leiter are Chris Young's. If they fall apart, and you say, oh, they can't scout and develop anybody, those are Chris Young draft picks, and he'll have to wear that. But Leiter's fine. I mean, that he's dealing with some inconsistency. I think we talked about it. Maybe the humidity and the perspiration affected some of his pitches last time, but he has had some like that at times during his starts. But he's only going to get better. And ever since the Rangers kind of readdressed things and reset him in 23, the trajectory's been upward. And I know people didn't like what he did in the majors last year, and he didn't like it either, but he was a hell of a pitcher at AAA. So things are getting better. I wrote over at our website, alldls.com.
Become a diehard.
Hopefully Rocker can look at Jack and be like, hey, if Jack Leiter can do it, my buddy and teammate, I can do it.
Well, they did, and they handled Rocker correctly, because if y'all remember, and I said it and was wrong, when they drafted Jack Leiter, and they were talking about, because they shut him down as soon as they drafted him. He just went to Arizona. He didn't go play complex league. He didn't do anything. He was shut down. He went back to school, actually, and worked out after he was drafted by the Rangers and signed. So coming into the next year, people were talking about, well, where's he going to start? And I was saying he should start at AA. You saw what he did in the SEC. He should start at AA. And people, well, I don't know. Well, AA might have been a stretch. And I remember, was it you that talked to him when he said, let me tell you the difference between pro baseball and SEC is amazing baseball. If you watch it, you've seen it. It's some talented baseball. But he said, when I was at Vanderbilt, wasn't it for the Corpus Christi Hooks? He said the guy that was batting third from Mississippi State. So I was worried about the top 5 guys in that lineup. He was batting third. He was batting 8th for Corpus Christi. And so that tells you the difference in that. And then when Rocker gets drafted, they start him out at high A.
Yeah, I think now, I don't know if they'd ever admit it on the record, but I've definitely heard some of them say, yeah, we were a little aggressive. We were a little wrong on Jack.
Yeah.
Okay, so they learned from it. But the point being here, things are going good for Jack, and that's the path Rocker needs to follow. But another thing, going back to the innings thing on Kamara, who has like 70 innings, and Jack Leiter made his major league debut with probably around 300 innings.
Yeah.
250 to 300 professional innings. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
It gets back to the game situation.
I think Kamara's progressing like you want. I think he's been rushed a little bit just because
he's definitely rushed.
But where he is, but this is a guy that needs to be getting those innings, working through it. The guy throws 98, 99 miles an hour. He's got great off-speed stuff, but these are big league baseball players. These are the best hitters in the world.
He needs a third.
Yeah, and he wasn't going to make the team out of spring training, right? I mean, he just but for the injuries to Cody Bradford and John Gray, if it weren't for those, he was likely going to AAA. And ironically, Jack Leiter in that case would have at least started the season in the bullpen at the big league level. But
maybe,
things changed, injuries happened, things happened as they were. But I totally agree with you, John, that sending him down is the right thing to do. And I know what you're saying, Jeff. I think I'd be reluctant. I mean, I might send him to Arizona for a little time, but I do need him in those game situations like Boach was talking about, not created game situations, right? Real game situations. Think now, right? Do the right thing now as the play is happening. And, we talked about it last night. I mean, it felt like not only did he kind of forget what was happening a little late getting to first base, but then kind of went, woe is me, as he took 5 or 10 more steps and forgot about the other runner on base. So those kinds of things just have to be, as Boach said, I mean, it's Boach said, second nature.
Yeah.
It's brain fart. It's a brain fart. You made one. Look, everybody does it, but it compounds you as being a young player in the big leagues, not having a great night, and then you brain fart it and just let another run score because you kind of pout for a second or do whatever. And it's learned. You know what? You learn from mistakes. You take this opportunity, you go to AAA and go, I want to prove everybody wrong, and just go dominate. That's what you need to do, which is what you've done before.
Sure.
Speaking of brain farts, I spoke, Jeff, at a class today, the play-by-play camp that's I think they're actually going to be a sponsor of our show, and they've got all these camps. They're out of Philadelphia. But anyway, I spoke to the 75 kids who want to be announcers someday. And I was showing them my scorebook with the blood, by the way. And I said, you got to bleed for this game. I said, but I said, we have a lot of abbreviations in a scorebook. And I did tell them, I know there are apps for this, but I like my book, But anyway, these kids are going, you got a book? But
yeah.
So anyway, I said, but we have a lot of abbreviations. I said, the abbreviation I put last night at the end of the game, WOBF. And they said, WOBF. Walk-off brain fart. Right? I mean, you get walk-off home runs, you get walk-off singles, you get walk-off walks. This was a walk-off brain fart.
Absolutely.
Right. Wow, then for walk-off walk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. What were you about to say?
So I think going back to last night's game, we talked about Robert Garcia on the post-game show, and he wasn't at his best, but made the pitches he needed to, and the result should have been different. But with the bullpen seeming to be the next sticking point, and we have the offense number one by a mile.
Yeah,
rotation's fine. The bullpen, apparently, they're going to bring up. There's a report out there that they're going to bring up a Luis Curvelo, hard throwing right-hander who before this year had never pitched above Double-A. Free agent signing in the offseason, got a major league deal. Anyway, it was an interesting signing, kind of like a Rule 5 pick, but a guy that you could option. So anyway, I don't know whose spot he's going to take.
Yeah, somebody's got to be.
Frankly, the spots of the guys he would take have been pitching well. Latz and Win, unless
there's an injury,
or they don't think Bosley should be on the team, but they're going to have the need for length. So I don't know what's going to happen. But how does this sort out? I think getting Martin back will be big, but I do think Garcia is going to stay the closer.
Who else would it be? I mean, it may be Martin, but you got to worry about what his arm is right now.
Yeah, you do, and he's not a strikeout guy.
No, so
that's kind of like he pitches to contact. So, and he does really well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know that he's the closer. But I don't know. I think upgrades are needed. Agreed, John?
100%. And, I mean, obviously the other option that you haven't mentioned there would be going back to Luke Jackson. And yet I said it, we talked about it on the show right when, he became the closer, and he was doing a fine job at the beginning, but he doesn't seem like that strikeout pitcher, that guy that's just that closer that, I come in and I shut the door. And I think you and I both agree they still need that. We would have loved for it to be Kirby Yates, although, as that turned, who knows if things would have been different in Texas. But that hasn't turned out that well for the Dodgers.
No.
The internal upgrades I think are coming with Spores and Gray, and Bradford. Really, he could also be in the rotation, which then pushes, let's say, Bosley, Latz, and Wynn to the minors.
Maybe Corbin Burns gets,
and so then you reestablish some of your depth. But I think that in the short term, there's not a lot they can do except trying things like Curvelo and eventually Teodo, who has been struggling with walks. There's a belief that he is having trouble adapting to the ABS.
Which may be in the big leagues
because he gets a lot of swing and miss with his stuff, and a lot of chase. Whereas it's pretty interesting. You look at these walk totals in the minor and AAA. Hitters are learning the system. They are
Sure. It's a stats game.
They found a workaround, a way to lay off these pitches because they know that, if it's a nasty slider, they don't have to swing at it because it's probably going to be out of the strike zone.
Right.
So they're working on it. They're going to try to not reset, but they're giving Toyota some things to work on that they think will get him back. But it's interesting because they want to, and it's not that he's throwing the ball all over the place. It's just these hitters are seasoned enough. They're taking advantage of the system and not chasing. So I wonder when he becomes an option, if he can, in a couple weeks, if he, these little changes that they're asking him to make, if they work out, if he could be an option soon. So
Well,
there are internal options, I think, coming. But
I think they were dependent on those. I think they thought Mark Church was going to be more of a leverage arm too. You had Toyota, who you thought.
Forget about Mark Church. Yeah.
But if you think about the ABS on a kid that throws as hard as Toyota does, quite honestly, if you're nibbling around the outside and getting people to chase, it's usually after you've gotten ahead on somebody, you've gotten ahead of somebody, right?
Yeah.
Then you can nibble around. If people know at the ABS, they don't have to swing at those pitches out of the strike zone. Well, then what are you doing? You still feel like you got to get ahead. So that means maybe you're coming over the plate early and people are sitting on it. People can hit 100 miles an hour if they're sitting on it and they're waiting on 100 mile an hour. So that's why that ABS can sometimes you can't look at what an ERA is in AAA and go, wow, this guy sucks. Not necessarily. It may just be when he gets up here and you have like a Laz Diaz or whoever whose strike zone is 80 feet wide and goes all the way across the batter's box, what they can do. But I think they thought, kind of like last year, I think they thought and depended on Carter and Langston more than they should have last year. I think they thought maybe this year we can get Martin, we can get Garcia, we can get these guys, but we've got these young fireballers ready. Eventually we'll get them up here, and by All-Star break towards the end of the year, these will be our leverage guys and those 100-mile-an-hour closers up here, but they're not having success right now.
Yeah.
And, on that ABS thing too, at first I was like, why do we limit challenges so strongly? Well, this is why, right? Because if everybody's got unlimited challenges, nobody's anymore, right?
Right.
And the fact they've figured this out already at the minor league level, chase rates are down tremendously at AAA. And that's basically because of this. And I don't blame a guy, because those are the ones you look silly on too, by the way. Those sliders that are sweepers that, take, and you're reaching for it. And you don't have to swing at them if the ABS is going to say, oh no, that was out of the strike zone.
Yeah. But then, if your stuff's good enough, you can throw it in the strike zone.
Yes. Well, that'll be the key. Yeah.
That's so get ahead, stay ahead.
Yeah, that's the deal. You got to be ahead, because you can throw straight down the middle if you're ahead when you got somebody guessing at what else you're going to throw. And that's the situation. And I think they thought those two guys were probably already going to be here by now. Yeah, and Mark Church dealt with some injury stuff.
Well, and Church made the opening day roster.
Yes, he did.
Then he wasn't great. Turns out he had a little thing. He went down to Arizona, got her back, rehabbed. He may still be there. He might be back with Round Rock now. But the point is, he's going to be an option too. But I think that ultimately, if the Rangers work themselves back into contention or think they're contenders at the deadline, that's where you got to go.
You got to look bullpen.
You got to go. And if that means Ray Davis has to open up his wallet a little bit, he's got to do it. For a bona fide closer. And maybe it's a guy who you can have for a couple more years so you can justify it as, okay, this is going to be a free agent signing. Yeah. We'll count this toward the free agency the next couple of years. Whatever it is. I mean, those guys are hard to come by, but nevertheless, I do just think that's an element that the Rangers have got to have.
Do they look bad if this continues?
I don't know. I mean,
that's the problem
out there, but gosh,
nobody's killing it anywhere, except for your super.
What are you going to do? Are you going to go get a second baseman? No, because your second baseman makes too much money.
But
I could see
a DH tap is the only thing you can think of.
If Peterson's no good, or if Adolis continues to struggle, that's where I think they could look. But otherwise, I think they're just kind of stuck with what they got offensively.
Yeah,
they're just kind of pinned in,
Coach him up.
Yeah. Or maybe their pride will finally kick in, and they'll be like, "Dang it, I'm embarrassing myself. Maybe I should listen to the guys who see me every day."
Yeah. Well, listen, before we get out, I wanted the fans also have this one a lot, and I just want confirmation
good
from
fan talk. All right.
Confirmation from you guys. They seem to be under the impression that media does not ask these players questions or tough questions. And I'm always going, yeah, they do. It's just we don't have 25 cameras. This is New York where there's 5 stations with cameras on everybody. But people are asking these questions. Well, where do I see these? Well, you got to join DLLS and see the quotes that happen when Jeff writes stories about it.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay a paywall, but you guys have seen it. These guys are getting asked questions when they're struggling. There's only so much you can ask. And the answers
100%.
And the answers are political. They're just going to say, yeah, I suck and I want to get better and I need to be better. And that's all they can say. They're not going to come out and say they need to demote me or I need to, maybe they need to.
And what are we supposed to get into an argument with them?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to say, hey, why are you so shitty?
Yeah.
You want us to be that tough? Well, we're not going to be.
No.
We're not going to cuss at them. We find ways to ask questions that make them answer, without an argument. We're not trying to argue with these guys. We talked to Simeon after, and we said this last night, after the essentially the no-hitter against the Blue Jays. And, they went into an off day and he's been great ever since. We've talked to Adolis and Adolis has not responded. It's not, they don't feel the shame of the media's scorn. Okay.
No,
you can't.
Some of them have in the past, like Crazy Eyes, Keone Kella. He did. And, I'll tell you right now, Nate Lowe got pissed off at a writer last year. I won't reveal the writer, but Nate Lowe got pissed at a writer last year. So there are some who read these things or have them read to them by their spouses or whatever. But these guys don't care what we say.
No,
they put more pressure on themselves than anybody else.
And they understand you're going to ask these questions. John, you were having to ask these questions a lot when you were at the clubhouse more. I mean, you're there now, but not as much. Jeff's there every day having to do it. I'm there, but I don't ever ask the question because the beats always do it. But these guys know you've got to ask these questions and they're going to answer these questions. But yeah, you can't go in fire and brimstone about why do you suck and you don't seem to be able to hit a breaking ball. What the hell is it? It's like they act like these guys just go pout in the corner, play dominoes and do something and don't work on it. These guys are consistently working on crap.
Yeah, and what the fans need to realize is that in many ways, especially when I was, as a part of the Rangers broadcast, so technically working for a partner of the Rangers, but in many ways, this is the beat writers too, right? The guys in that clubhouse are essentially coworkers, right?
Yeah.
So how many of you fans go up to your coworker when he does something poorly, or if you're a boss, you go up to your employee when he does something poorly and say, "You suck. You should be sent out of here," right? I mean, you don't. That's not how you approach the people you work with, coworkers, people that you have to have a relationship with in order to get, if you're the boss, productivity out of them. If you're the media guy, future interviews, any sort of respect, right? You can't go approach this in the wrong way and expect them to respect you, because they will. I mean, and it happens in New York all the time. There's guys that they just, they have to talk if the guy just happens to be in a scrum, but they're not going to talk to a guy who treats them that badly.
Exactly.
Well, and you get to the point, to your point, John, with some of these guys where you can just walk up to them and go, "Man, what the F is going on?"
Yeah.
And they'll give you an answer. Especially if it's not on camera, they'll be like, "Gosh, I'm doing this. This sucks. I'm frustrated." I know, like Jock Peterson, the one of the few times I've talked to him, he was great. He was like, I know that I'm terrible right now, and I was signed as the big offseason addition to get this offense going, and I'm not doing my job, But he said that to me. He didn't say it on camera and with, it was just like a laid back conversation. And so a lot of the times, after the game is not a great time to talk to these guys. If they've gone out and had an awful game,
yeah,
they're not going to be in a big mood there to tell you war and peace about what's going wrong.
No,
it's pregame stuff. Yep. And, now there are times like with the Simeon deal last week when the whole team is sucking and they all need to say something, and they knew they all did. And by God, they all did, so, but yeah, this isn't sports talk and this isn't Twitter,
right?
When we're in the clubhouse.
Well, and
this is not free debate. And another thing, players are under no obligation to speak to us. They speak to us because they want to be accountable to their teammates,
right?
And because we build these relationships with them, and they know that what our job is. And but they also know that beat writers aren't columnists, and that's another thing.
Yes,
I am not a columnist. Now, I did write a column about Kamar Rocker and what I thought was wrong and what he did wrong. But my main duty is to report the news, and going up there and writing a story and telling this guy that he sucks is not a way to get it. So I don't know what fans and normal people think. We can hold people accountable.
And you do.
And we do. But we don't do it. It's just that, Randy Galloway was a columnist, and Randy Galloway could breathe fire and brimstone. And when he did, he was in the clubhouse the next day in case somebody wanted to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
So we'll be there the next day, but the beat writers don't do that. We don't call for people to be fired or to be benched. We can suggest it, say, we can ask the manager, does he need some time off? Does he need a day off? That kind of thing, and present it that way. But we're not out there to say, cut this guy, Chris Young needs to be fired.
Yeah.
Those aren't our job. That's not our job. But beat writers have a responsibility to present the information in a way in which, possibilities are out there. But it's not our job to say, fire him or send him to AAA or anything like that. And I've only done it a few times. Mike Fultonevitz, I did it with him.
Oh God!
And I was a little. I don't know if I was hard on Kamar in what I wrote last night, but it was a little stronger than a beat writer usually goes. But that's just not our job. And there aren't many columnists around anymore, and they aren't at the ballpark every day. And it's just, this is the way it is. And the TV reporters are paid by the club, so they can't do that. Radio guys can't do it. It's
the beats.
It's just the way it is. That's the way the media is right now.
It's not me.
Be honest, Jeff. Be honest, Jeff. Too. The reason you were hard on Fultonevich is his name is just so damn hard to spell. It was like, let's
That's
get
exactly.
Him out of
Yeah,
here.
I need it.
I got to type that name every day.
That's right.
Because you misspell it 20 times. Hey, and let me tell you something. If you're not a DLS diehard, I see all these guys in this clubhouse. John, I've seen your relationship with the guys in there. Jeff has a relationship with these players like nobody I've seen. Him, it wouldn't surprise me if Jacob deGrom and him end up barbecuing together. Those guys are yucking it up and talking, and that's a relationship. He has to ask deGrom questions when he needs to, but he knows how to work the room and talk to these guys and build the relationship. Look, I've got a relationship with these guys, but they also know I'm not writing anything about them, and they also know that I'm not in there. I'm just yucking and saying hi, good game, kind of that thing. The beat writers have to have a relationship with these guys, and one of the best I see is the guy sitting over here to my right in his relationship, because I see Jeff over there talking to guys that I wish I could talk to, and I'm like, I'm getting away. I don't know. You got some relationship with these guys that most people don't.
I'm old. Don't give a shit anymore.
That's true too.
Yeah, I don't. I just know that they're guys. That's the thing that people don't understand is that baseball players, football players, athletes are guys.
Yep.
They're regular guys. They have families. They get sick. They got to go get their car registered, whatever. They have problems. Jacob deGrom and I talked the other day randomly about accidents we've been in while in cabs. I mean, as passengers in cabs. Just stuff that happens. And it's just, I like Jacob, and I'm sure Jacob liked all the other reporters just fine. But you just got to be able to talk to these guys and understand that, their wives might be pregnant. They might be going through something. Their mom might be sick. And that was something with Nathaniel Lowe that I really think affected him in 23, at the end of 23, when his mom got sick.
Yeah.
They are not robots.
No.
That's my problem with the war statistic. These players aren't in a vacuum. They are not all the same. And you never know what's going on with guys. And it's hard to sometimes put it away and compartmentalize it for 6 hours a day at the ballpark. Sometimes it's hard to do, but for the most part, these are guys. They're trying. They don't want to suck. Nobody wants to fail. I don't want to be bad at my job. Neither of you want to be bad at yours. And the people listening and the people who are critical of the media or critical of the team, they don't want to be bad at their jobs either.
Nope.
And they sure as hell don't want somebody to point it out for them. So when they are bad, and like I hate getting emails where I've spelled a word wrong, or somebody who thinks that I didn't structure a sentence correctly, something like that. I don't like that. All right, but I appreciate it. But anyway, we've really gone off the rails.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to just prove that I kind of know what I'm saying when I'm saying these guys are asking them questions. I'm not. I mean, good Lord, the last thing that these guys ever hear me ask are, how are the kids? How's Josh Smith? I'm always checking up on Claire. She's pregnant. How's she doing? How's she feeling? Stuff like that. The baseball questions come from the beats when it's right, when they need to ask them something for their stories or do whatever. And another thing, guys, that you don't understand is that when Jeff needs a story, he can go to Rich Rice and he can say, I really need to talk to this guy. And it may not happen within that day, but he's going to figure it out where Jeff can get together with these guys to do the interview he needs to get what he needs. And that's the way that works. And these guys, like you said, they're not obligated to talk to anybody.
100%.
But you've built a great relationship with them, and it works. And John, I've seen you work it too. You go in there and do it too. I'm not as experienced as you guys. I like to hang on the outskirts and just, do stuff. I have times when I ask them fun questions, but there's a time for that. Spring training's fun for me. I really get to know them then.
Yeah, and that's they're laid back, and that's why spring training is so important for media. Get out there and catch these guys laid back, and you be laid back.
They're friendlier with fans, and they're more accessible.
You start
having fun. Just everybody's having fun.
You start it there, especially with the newcomers.
Yep.
All right.
Are we done?
We're done.
That's
okay,
it.
but yeah, Rangers in trouble.
Yes.
Next 40 games important.
This episode is called "This Isn't Good," and then there
is hope.
I have faith. John,
Marcus Simeon in the back of the other guy's baseball cards.
Hey, John is a true DLLS diehard himself for coming on and jumping in to sub it with us. You do this every day with Jeff. Jeff and I had the obligation with this show, but for you to jump in and join us and hear your take on this, we really appreciate it, John. And it's always great to talk to you about it anyway. Hey, when are you guys back on? You're going to be on Sunday after the post game?
I'm going to be off Sunday, previous obligation. So it'll be Jeff and Abby. We're thrilled to have Abs back in the rotation. And then Jeff and I back Monday through Thursday next week. And I think back to normal until Jeff goes on vacation in July sometime.
Yeah, July, right? A week before the trade deadline.
Okay.
So I can come back refreshed and
fired up.
ready to dig up some news.
All right, John, thanks for joining us, buddy. Guys, right after this, we're going to go down in the bus leagues as soon as we're done. Thanks, John.
All right, guys.
All right, a big thanks to John Rhadigan from The Daily Show who came on and joined Jeff and I just to kind of break down the week. We decided to get everybody on and kind of talk about It's Not Good, basically the name of the episode. But we're going to go minor leagues now. We're going to go down in the bus leagues, talk about every level in the bus leagues, starting at AAA Round Rock all the way down. And we're going to do the Arizona Complex League too because they're playing. And Jeff, I kind of thought what we would do there too is maybe talk about kind of player. I know it's June 5th or 6th, whatever it is today, but I was going to try to get together a minor league recap and just had so much going business wise on my normal stuff.
Yeah.
And doing that, guys, I promise I'm getting that going again. It's just been kind of busy with everything, but doing a player of the month for for May, kind of at each level. We could probably find somebody to talk about. Easy names to talk about, but let's go ahead and go to AAA, where the Round Rock Express, they're in fourth place right now. They are 29-31. They're 5-5 in their last 10, and they did lose last night. But if you're looking there, pitching wise,
probably Curvello,
the guy that just got promoted, that's the rumor.
Yeah,
there's
the starters haven't done a whole heck of a lot. They've been very inconsistent. Curvello, if this comes through, the club, of course, as we mentioned, doesn't like confirming these things until they actually happen.
Right.
He's earned it. May he was 3-0 with a 1.64 ERA and 25 strikeouts in 22 innings.
Is he a starter or is he coming out of the bullpen?
Reliever.
He's coming out of the bullpen. Okay.
That'll work, and
Rocker needed to get Rocker's move was Chris Martin.
The Rocker move, yeah, that was the corresponding move was Chris Martin.
So if, like we said earlier, what is Curvello? If Curvello comes up today, then there's going to be a corresponding, like we said. Well, talk to Curvello. Is
curveball. He's okay.
So he had 22 innings. Is that what you said?
22 innings, 25 strikeouts. But he worked. He worked a lot. Those are his totals on the year. The guy can go multiple.
He's got a 1.61 ERA.
He throws hard, and he was the first free agency signing. He was this hot, well thought of guy who'd never pitched in the majors, hasn't pitched above Double-A until this year, and then all of a sudden you see that. Hey, here's this guy that's really good. A lot of teams wanted him. The Rangers got him. In May, he was 1-0 with a 0.00 ERA. So
that's good, right?
That's pretty good.
Not getting scored on or an earned run.
I think he's kind of earned that. But yeah.
But the problem is, as we talked about earlier, it's not really pitching that's the issue up there, though. But you know what? You
need fresh arms.
Yep.
With the rotation, like we talked about, you can probably get away with, keeping everybody on normal rest and not needing a fifth starter. But if you want to do a bullpen game, then you're going to need a bunch of arms.
Yeah.
You can figure it out that way.
All right. Who's batting? I think I know who I would go with.
Yeah. I think it's Cody Freeman.
Yeah. That's who I was thinking.
He had a really good May, and now he's just continued into this month. Entering play last night, he'd had
our friend Cody Freeman
7 multi-hit games in a row. I think that ended last night, but he still had a hit. Look, this guy's playing shortstop now. On occasion, he could handle that. He's putting himself on the map. He's not on the 40-man, which is always a complicating factor. And then, of course, the Rangers have 1,000 players like him. But he's a winner. He does everything right. And if you need an emergency catcher, he'll get back behind the plate for you because he caught for a couple of years.
Yeah. But you know what? I've said this over and over and over. It happened with Blaine Krim, too. Continue to hit, and opportunities will come, whether it's with the team you're with.
Yep.
Or whether someone else says, well, you know what? We'll take a flyer. Cody Freeman might be somebody that could be the back end of a deal that comes at the deadline where somebody says, hey, maybe we can turn him into like a Ezekiel Duran or something like that.
It's kind of like, Liam Hicks. He was traded to the Tigers and then DFA'd. I think then he was sent to the Marlins. Anyway, he's like one of the Marlins' top catchers. And this was a guy who was a Double-A last year in the Ranger systems.
Yeah.
There are opportunities out there. And if you're going good, a scout's going to find you. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. That's if you're doing that, you're going to have a job. Whether it's a minor league job or a big league job, you'll continue to have a job.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Let's go down to Double-A. The Frisco Rough Riders. They are 31-22. They're in second place right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row. They're the one that's scuttling right now.
Yeah, but they're probably the Rangers' best.
They got the most talent.
In the minors, talent-wise, just
Yeah.
you know, they know how to play together. They have a great manager. Not that any of the managers are bad, but and then you see the pitching. Guys are starting to come around, and some guys have just been good all year. And it's hard to argue with what Mitch Brad is doing.
Pitcher of the month there, I would guess. Yeah.
What he did in May, 3.0, 133 ERA, 31 strikeouts and 3 walks.
Yeah, recently on the show too.
Yeah, on the show last week. It's when you look at the Rangers starting pitching depth, while Bradford and Rocker and Gray are all down now, or 2 down with injuries. It's like, man, who are you going to go to? It's like, well, your son Garabito's on the 40-man miraculously, but he's been awful. Got hit hard again last night, so Dunning would probably be the guy, but then that's going to cause a 40-man move. Well, adding Cole Drake or Mitch Bratt would be a 40-man move, and the Rangers aren't going to just take him straight from AA unless things really hit the fan.
Right.
But if they go to AAA and perform, then they could be candidates, and I think both are Rule 5 eligible.
Yeah.
After this season,
so they've got to do something with them this year.
You would think
this offseason
want to trade, but these guys have going to be really hard not to put on the 40-man.
Sure, absolutely.
Really yeah.
No, and that's the way. And what about when you go to batting? I mean, I know Miesis, I hope I'm saying that right. He's kind of been the hot guy down there right now, but is this guy really
he's not really a prospect, I don't think. He's
like 74 years old.
Organization. He was a $350,000 sign by the White Sox. And
was signed as a minor league free agent.
Now, look, these things, development, the player development is not linear. And I always point to Nelson Cruz, but Nelson Cruz had been in the majors at this point, and I'm not at all considering comparing the two. But maybe he comes up and ends up with a cup of coffee, and maybe he can, go to Japan or something like that.
Yeah.
If you want to talk prospect wise, well, then you're going to be talking about, Abby Ortiz had a pretty good May.
Walcott's been okay.
Walcott,
he's found a little bit of power.
Stuff. He's found some power. Cam Colley had a nice May. So there, nothing was great offensively, but there was some good stuff. And this, this team is, I think that's just kind of their identity, their manager. They're going to work hard. They're going to scrape. Aaron Zavala. God dang, Aaron Zavala had a good May.
No, that's one guy that's starting
that's a big deal.
That's starting to look like that's a guy that could be a big leaguer.
That's a big deal.
That's a Rusty Greer starter kit right there. I think one of these guys that puts together good at bats, is not afraid to get dirty in the outfield. No, he's not going to come up and be Rusty Greer. What I'm saying is he was a great college player. Pac-12 player of the year. When he came out of college, he was a second-round pick. Of course, he had that weird lump in his spine, or what was it?
And then he had a little shoulder injuries.
Yeah,
or elbow, or both. Shoot, I don't remember. But he had been really not good for about a year and a half, and then
he must be feeling good.
It just clicked. He hit 305, and he's getting on base again.
That's what his game was like. Carter
base percentage.
He was like Carter. He was always had great at bats. You would look at his strikeout to walk ratio, and they were very common. I mean, they were right in line with each other.
Sure. So that's an encouraging sign for Aaron and for the Rangers.
Yeah. All right, let's go down to High A. I call it High A, the Hub City Spartanburgers down there. They are in second place also. They are 29-25. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They've won a couple of games in a row. Pitching wise, it's easy, but they're not hitting great down there.
They're not. They did hit 4 home runs last night as a team. In May, though, you kind of look at the average and so let's look at something else. Slugging percentage. Glider Figueroa, 517 slug. He hit 8 home runs
in May.
In May, and
that works.
He's athletic enough. He can play second, shortstop, and third.
He's a name that's been mentioned a lot with the
power hitter, and
I think he's a top 30 prospect.
He's kind of been on the radar since 22. That was when he was in the complex league. There's not a lot of hit there. This is a power guy.
So it's
so if he can clean that up, he's got a chance. But
bomb or nothing, right?
yeah. But if he keeps hitting home runs, I think he could make his way to Frisco late in the year.
Our buddy Dryling's there.
Yeah, he's kind of struggling. He didn't have a great May. Keith Jones, another friend, didn't have a great May. So
both those guys, great. If y'all go watch that show, they were fantastic.
Yeah. And on the pitching side, it's your guy Davalillo, who was the
he's coming to
South
Frisco.
Atlantic League pitcher of the year.
He's got to be coming soon.
You would think All-Star break probably.
Okay. He keeps doing what he's doing.
When they make those moves. He didn't have a ton of starts last year at high A, so maybe that would be a concern. But I think that the numbers kind of speak for themselves.
Well, you said something though that made sense to me, and it may be on the Daily Show or something to that effect. When you're proven that maybe you're not, that you're above the league that you're in, there's two choices. Well, let's test you and move you up to AA, or let's test you. You don't get promoted. Are you just going to keep doing what you're doing? You're going to keep dominating at high A?
Sure.
So you got two ways to kind of with the head. There's not a place in the rotation at AA Frisco right now. Obviously, that's a linear thing. It's got to kind of roll uphill. Somebody either is let go or somebody's moved up to AAA to hit a rotation. A spot opens up, and maybe Davalillo's your guy.
Sure.
To do that. So, but he certainly seems like he's ready for AA.
Yeah.
Certainly seems like it.
Sure. And whenever Winston Santos comes back, he'll go into AA. But that still seems a little like it's a little bit ways off. But it's hard to argue with. And then another note from Hub City: Malcolm Moore is about 2 or 3 more weeks away from returning to games.
Was that a finger?
In Arizona, broken finger on his right hand
that's his throwing hand
from a foul tip, right, early in the season. So, but he's been in Arizona. Everything's progressing nicely, and he becomes a candidate for the fall league if they want to make up those at bats that he's been missing.
Absolutely, that's what I would do. Okay, let's go down to low A. The Hickory Crawdads, also in second place. They're 28-25. They're 7-3 in their last 10. So they've been cooking all right. They won last night. Okay, different guys there to look at. We still have Porter on the pitching side.
Right. Dalton Pence is the guy who kind of stood out.
Yeah, I was noticing he's
0.60 ERA in May.
He's got an overall like 2.6 or something.
2.2. A lot of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. I mean, he is a college pitcher from last year's draft, 11th round. So, that 11th round is that pick. The first pick of the third day. It's always a really targeted pick.
Yeah.
He got way above slot. He got $350,000 bonus.
Wow. Okay.
So he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's on the move soon. He doesn't have a ton of innings right now. He's been doing
easier to move up a reliever though.
Starters. Caden Scarborough had a really good May in terms of walk to strikeout, 40% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate. He got better last month than his first month. But there's some good pitchers down there. There really are. And Porter's still relieving, and it may be that way. It hasn't been revisited yet, but they want to get him reps. He's missed some reps, and he seems to like it apparently. So, hey, don't fix what ain't broke.
And I guess Maxton Martin's kind of been the one guy that's been semi-consistent there. He's still hitting close to 300, like 276.
Yeah.
Got about a 780.
He drove in 6 runs last night. They had a big win last night, and he had a.
This was a high school kid that's in low A. So
yeah, he was on our show early in the year because he got off to a great start. Like a lot of young high school guys out of the high school ranks, a lot of strikeouts.
Right.
So he wants to work on that, obviously.
Sure.
25 extra base hits. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think he's got 4 home runs
the first couple months of the season. So he's the guy to look at. Pablo Guerrero, not a lot of power down there. He's got 4 homers. That's tied.
None of them really ever have a ton of power down there.
But somebody will take off.
Yeah.
And maybe these, and I know it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a stereotype, but a lot of these Latin kids don't hit in cold weather. And maybe now that it's warming up, you're going to see some of these guys warm up.
Well, let's go down to the Arizona Complex League. Yeah. They are playing right now in Arizona. They're in first place. They're 15-10. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've won a couple in a row. I haven't seen stats there. So you're going to have
Yeah.
to tell me some of the guys. You've brought them up before. Who's kind of leading the way there?
Yeah, well, Devin Fitzgerald, we talked about him.
Yeah,
last week.
I've seen some highlights of him. Now, there's
Yeah.
been a couple of videos put out.
Yeah, and he's from Florida high school. He's a 5th-round pick last year, I want to say. That's good stuff, man, for a 19-year-old to be doing that. So, when this season ends in really about 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, he could be on his way to
Hickory
at the end of the year. On the pitching side, Aiden Deacons, he was the Rangers' 13th rounder last year. Left-hander, from Wabash Valley Junior College in Illinois. He's doing well, and he should be. All right.
Did you say Wabash?
Wabash Valley. He's 21, so he should be pitching well against these guys, and he is. And there are a lot of cases before anybody who does well, and sometimes it's a usage thing. They'll start these guys off in the complex league before they move them up to another league, and you could be seeing that happening here.
I'm pretty sure Wabash Valley is where my wife's cousin's kid went and played baseball for a year. Well, he's married now. This was a few years back, but I'm pretty sure that was the school. Pretty good athlete out of high school, played every sport, and ended up going there. I'll have to check. I could be totally wrong, but anyway, so you say he's a college kid anyway, coming out.
He's older. He should be doing what he's doing, but he's doing it, and that's good.
That's what we're doing. What you're supposed to.
Exactly.
Well, and when does the Dominican League start?
It's coming up. I don't know the date for sure, but
that'll be fun. Watch
this. Be within the month.
Yeah,
and so you'll see some names that come out of that, and but on the
usually a couple teams there, right?
Yeah. Besides Fitzgerald on the hitting side, Clymer Lamos, he was I think he was the player of the week, or maybe the player for the complex league. He's doing good. And then Braylon Morrell is back from an injury, and he's doing well. And I would expect that he will be headed toward Hickory in the not too distant future.
Yeah, heading out. I could see that. All right, well, that's a wrap on this one. We got the minor league, the bus leagues done. Big thanks to John Rhadigan for jumping on with us. Things are not clicking like you would like at the big league level. Like we said, I look, there's no fun way to put it, but we got to keep reporting on it. You guys are still doing the daily show. We're going to keep doing the weekly show. And guys, we appreciate you being a part of this one. For John Rhadigan, Jeff Wilson, I'm John Moore. Till next week, guys, we'll see you at the yard.